software engineering is dead. Long live the value layer engineer. I'll show you what I mean by that. So this is from a talk I gave at Tacto. It's a German AI company. I did a little bit of an intro, which I think we can skip. The idea is that I have built my career around, transitioning from engineer to problem solver over time. Obviously, gaining a lot of different skills by then over the last 13 years. I do have an intro video, more information if you're interested. I'll link that up somewhere on the screen, but let's continue. So essentially what we're seeing, right, with software engineering or engineering in general is that it's better to be a wide scope generalist that is good at one thing. It's the so-called T-shaped entrepreneur. A lot of basics of different disciplines, and we can evaluate results. And we have one area where we're really good. So if you're a software engineer, that could be software engineering. If you're a designer, it could be designer. If you're product manager, it could be your product manager. And usually that will come out of your existing experience. And then you can use that to obviously make good decisions and build at least a basic level of judgment in the other disciplines. And what I mean by value layer engineer is essentially that, used to be full stack developer, used to be about building UIs, building full stack apps, which is here layer 3, but that's just commoditizing, right? So if everyone can ship an app, especially SaaS is quite simple to do because it isn't really rocket science, right? It depends on what you're doing, but most SaaS really isn't. And so increasingly that stuff can be generated, which makes it a commodity. And then we have the layer here at the bottom, which is the systems of records, which are essentially databases, CRMs, APIs. That is what I call plumbing. So that part won't go away, but it isn't really rocket science either, right? So it's either you have data or you don't, or you figure out how to collect it, which the data itself will be very valuable, but ultimately, maybe data engineering is a skill as well, right? That you can learn, but ultimately what I see most valuable is this so-called layer 2 that's in the middle. So this is what I call the value layer I made up. So if you haven't heard of it before, welcome to the club, because I don't know what I'm doing, but we have context, domain knowledge, structure for AI. We have prompting, so that's behavior logic and guardrailing. And we have orchestration, essentially hooks and review, goals, everything that goes into agent orchestration. And so what really is the key here is to take domain expertise or workflow expertise and then encode that for an agent or an app. It doesn't matter, but ultimately there will always be some sort of automation component, and then there will be some sort of AI component in there as well. And that I think is where in the next 3 or 5 years, I don't know, right? It's hard to make predictions, obviously, but where I see the value moving. And so that means essentially the role is that the most valuable person in the team, or isn't the best coder or software engineer. It's the person that can encode domains, know how into working agents or applications, and I call the value layer engineer. And here it says the engineer is optional. Designers and product people make great ones too. So this is for everyone. Obviously, you will have different strengths, right, based off of your profile. And so because a lot of the AI content out there is absolute fucking made up bullshit, I just wanted to show that I'm actually doing this myself, right? So I am doing this every day, implementing for a real estate venture and also for CPG. We're implementing agents that do, here the investment process, and here's the commercialization process of new CPG products. And there we are sitting together with a domain expert to implement what they know about how it works, and we make it agentic flows that are quite complex and with multiple steps, multiple agents, which is orchestration, all that stuff, right? And ultimately underneath, I have kind of internal AI first operating system, shared knowledge, context layer. These both ventures run on. So that's another meta layer of like AI enablement for the agents that then perform internal tasks or back office tasks or build the apps themselves, right? So you're sharing that across both. And ultimately how I imagine an AI first product team is essentially a small core with a universe of experts. And this isn't new. Like this model is from having empty raincoat from the 90s or something, book, which is it's called the donut model. But I'm seeing this becoming more and more relevant, where you essentially have a core team, which is usually just a domain expert and a value layer engineer. The domain expert can also be a product manager that is a domain expert on behalf of the customer, because usually the customer will be the end domain expert, right? And then that value layer engineer, and then obviously the shared AI knowledge that they built up together. And it can obviously also just be one person, right? It could be the domain expert is the value layer engineer, depending on what space you're building in. And then around that, you essentially have a team of either people, like sometimes you want to make an app that doesn't look like AI designed, and you want to, get a designer involved if you have very complex infrastructure that maybe AI can't do, or it's better. I see it like taxes or law where it's like AI can probably do it, but ultimately to make sure you are covering your ass, you will have a lawyer check it anyway, or you will have an accountant check it anyway, right? So it's a matter of both liability and also just making sure that you're getting the best result and not just the thing that AI told you to do, especially if you don't have enough knowledge yourself how to validate what it's doing, right? So ultimately that is up to you. And then what's interesting here for me is like, and this talk was mostly about like, how can you be more open, just going with that and not like kind of, you know, what I used to do, like kind of fight it and see myself as a software engineer. And so I had a quote here that says, the lure of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. And I think this is very important. So this thing that I showed you here, that might change again in like a year from now, and nobody knows, but it's very likely to happen, right? And we just have to keep moving with the change. Like that's all we can do. And in terms of skills, like the skills that matter more, also will be, you know, from the slide before, learning, unlearning, but also social skills like curiosity, token allocation, skill allocation. So basically everybody becomes more of a senior and a manager and is reviewing a bunch of junior people's work all the time, which means like a senior usually is someone that has a lot of experience and has good judgment and taste and knows, okay, this is great architecture. Okay, this is good code, you know, like that just comes with experience. And so that's why it's great to be deep in one area, because then there you have real judgment. And then in the other ones, you just try to be, you know, 80-20 as possible. What at 80% you can learn in 20% of the time, which are usually kind of 5 to 10 core fundamental things. And then at least you have some idea. And then AI can at least not completely bullshit you. But then that's also why I said you may have to get an expert involved at some point. Anyway, so here were some recommendations, you know, for your information diet. I think it's become very important, especially as AI kind of content floods everything and we're just getting a bunch of shit shoved down our throats. So I have some, you know, books I think are very good. It's also great to not always be in front of your screen if you can, to just like sit somewhere and have a moment to think. So I really like to read. My favorite newsletters, there's the FS.blog Thinking newsletter. There's HBR, which I call Corporal Slop, but ultimately it is quite corporate, but it is also quite useful in a lot of cases. It always gives me kind of ideas how to solve certain issues I'm dealing with, even though they aren't corporate, they are further removed. But it is, as far as, you know, short form essays in this like, you know, more theoretical space go, that's quite good. We have the SERP Ideas podcast. We have AI and I, which is just as a podcast, Dire CEO, Lex Friedman, and Y Combinator. You probably already know most of these anyway. And so again, like where this is go, I think all we can do is kind of, you know, focus on what doesn't change. And because there's so much change these days, there's almost not that doesn't change, but I think what won't change is that there will always be problems. And so I put this quote that's, problems are inevitable because our knowledge will always be infinitely far from complete, and then problems are solvable. So we can solve problems, but solving one problem creates 5 new ones, and they just get harder to solve every time. But that's just how it goes, right? And that's how we make progress. And I think that's just, it's a great quote, and it's also a great mindset to have. So anyway, yeah. If you want to connect with me, obviously you are on YouTube, so you don't need to press that one, but I'm also on Twitter. And yeah, I would love to also in the comments just engage and hear your thoughts. And if you like this video, feel free to like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.